All right, now on the broadcast, we're joined by Mr. Yusuf Jalali, who's a journalist who's based out of Tehran. Mr. Jalali, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. And let me, in fact, start off by asking you about this Israeli attack on the South Pars, or gas refining facility, which is the largest in the world. At this moment, is there an assessment as to what is the status of the damage on the South Pars gas refining agency there?
Of course, Mohammed, this is by far the most significant development because we see a shift in the pattern of the strikes. Initially, on the initial days of the conflict, we saw military institutions, intelligence entities being the target, and now it is turning into a kind of an economic war targeting the energy infrastructure. And as put by analysts here in Iran, this is going to turn into a war that targets the energy infrastructure, not just in Iran, but across the region, because Iran has been also launching retaliatory strikes targeting similar energy facilities and infrastructure in the Gulf region, targeting Ras Laffan, as you also mentioned, and other facilities in Kuwait, in Qatar, elsewhere in the region. So this is very much dangerous and escalatory on the part of the Israelis and the Americans. The Iranians are now saying that they're ready to retaliate any strike targeting its energy infrastructure. And the damage was significant on the South Pars gas field. It is a gas field that is located on the southern Persian Gulf coastline in southern Iran, on the northern, actually, coastline of the Persian Gulf in southern Iran. And it is actually the largest gas field in the world and supplies more than 75% of Iran's gas needs and demands. But of course, Iranian officials said that there's not disruption. There's no disruption in the gas supplies across Iran because the northern parts of Iran rely on gas imports mainly from Turkmenistan, and the southern part of Iran is supplied domestically, partially by the South Pars gas field. Other provinces like the Khuzestan province has its own gas fields, just gas and oil fields that do not rely on the South Pars. But all in all, there's no disruption reported. But of course, the damage is significant, and Iran is now trying to just continue the flow of gas supplies in Iran. But of course, as put by Iranian officials, this is going to be dangerous. Iran can retaliate and has been able to retaliate and inflict some damages on the energy infrastructure across the GCC region. And of course, this is why Iran is now demanding that the GCC member states now go ahead and urge the United States and the Israelis to halt its sanctions against Iran if they want to avoid strikes coming from Iran.
Yusuf, now the fact that the South Pars gas field was bombed and this has set off a chain reaction where the Iranians have hit back at oil and gas facilities in Qatar, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. This means that all bets are off. On day 20 of this war, now the oil and gas facilities, which are essentially the assets that generate wealth in this region, are coming under attack. Now, Iran is banking on the fact that these Gulf nations can actually try and use their leverage in the United States of America to try and bring an end to this war. But do you think this assumption actually works? Because how much leverage can these Gulf nations even have to try and lean in on the Americans and the Israelis to bring an end to this war?
Of course, if this trend continues, then we have to see two paths ahead. First is Iran's hope that these countries go ahead and urge Washington and Tel Aviv to just halt the strikes and try to come up with a diplomatic solution to the crisis, to which Iran is showing some willingness to engage in diplomatic channels or engagement with the United States. But of course, the second path, which is more likely, is a path of confrontation or retaliation on the part of those states, because we've seen these states just convening, holding some meetings, warning Iran of retaliatory strikes. We saw just Iranian diplomats being expelled from Qatar. We saw unprecedented rhetoric from the Saudi foreign minister Faisal bin Farhan, who said that this is going to shatter any trust in Iran after China brokered just normalization of ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia a few years ago. And then this is going to shatter the hardly built trust between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So if this continues, and if this trend of just warnings and the expulsion of diplomats continues from the GCC region, then we're going to expect more escalatory developments in the region, because Iran has also shown willingness to and the will to continue this fight for the upcoming weeks and even months. Iran saying that it is not going to of course, just leave or abandon its pressure on the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, and the repercussions and the shock waves it has sent throughout the world. The oil prices are continuing to surge, and Iran is now hoping to push oil prices beyond $150 per 1 barrel. And Iran is now saying that this is its right to do this, because it is not the one that initiated this conflict, and it is actually retaliating against the incoming strikes.
All right. Now, the Israelis and the American strategy is fairly clear. They're trying to take out the top leadership of Iran one by one in order to see if the Iranian government will crumble without the top leadership. They've taken out Ali Larijani, who was the security chief, the second, essentially the man who was in command of the Iranian counterattack. And according to reports, they've also now managed to kill the intelligence minister, Ismail Khatib, along with the besieged paramilitary forces commander, Ghulam Reza Soleimani. The fact there's 3 top leaders in Iran's government and military infrastructure being taken out, what impact has this had on how Iran is responding and acting in this war?
Well, Iran is showing resilience, and they're saying that their command structure does not rely on a specific single person, and has shown that this is truly the case, because as soon as the Iranian supreme leader, the late supreme leader, was assassinated, they quickly replaced him with his, of course, son, with all the controversies around him. But of course, the name of Khamenei continues to echo and continues to reverberate in Iran as the supreme leader. The name is symbolic. Khamenei is still ruling and leading this country. But again, when it comes to Ali Larijani, he was a key person. He was a heavyweight politician with multiple sensitive, vital posts he had served in, including the aide to Iran's supreme leader, and of course the national security chief in Iran. But as soon as he was taken out, he was replaced by even a more hardline face, Hossein Dehghan. We heard it, and this news was confirmed, that Hossein Dehghan has replaced Ali Larijani as the new national security chief in Iran. And Hossein Dehghan, who is Hossein Dehghan? This person comes from the IRGC background. He served as a commander of the IRGC, senior commander in the IRGC. He served in the Iran-Iraq War back in the 1980s, and he's known as the military strategist, a high-profile military strategist in Iran. Unlike Ali Larijani, who came from the political security background, this person is known as a military strategist and also was the military advisor to the late supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So Hossein Dehghan is expected to pursue a more confrontational, military-wise way of just leading the national security apparatus in Iran. So Iran is projecting resilience by choosing people who adopt even more hawkish rhetoric and more confrontational stance towards the United States and Israel. And now we're expecting that the national security apparatus in Iran is going to be headed towards even more military escalation with the United States.
All right. Now, Iran's strategy is clear. It wants to stop the export of oil and gas from the Strait of Hormuz. But Iran is also a significant importer with respect to food. Nearly about 30% of the food that is consumed within Iran is in fact imported. And this also has apparently taken a bit of a beating. Is there a concern within Iran about the fact that the longer this war drags on, the import of certain key supplies that would come into Iran would actually drop? How does Iran intend to, in fact, try and address this issue?
So far, Iranian officials, including President Pezeshkian himself, have assured the public that there's not going to be any disruption in the food supplies or the other essential supplies in Iran. And we have not witnessed such a thing to take place right now as we speak, because even when it comes to the prices have been controlled. The inflation has been in control, unlike the days of the protests, if you remember, when despite the ongoing protests back in December and last year and January this year, we saw significant rise and hike and spike in prices, food prices, staples like rice just surged significantly, even despite the economically driven protests. But now, despite the wartime conditions, Iran has managed to, of course, curb the inflation and maintain the flow of essential supplies. We're not predicting how things would evolve in the future, but of course, so far Iran has wisely managed the prices, because they know that if they don't do this, then the internal chaos and unrest would just be triggered across the country. And then they have to face external pressure, military pressure from the US and Israel. And then they have to also grapple with internal just dissent and protest that would erupt in the country if they don't curb prices and just do not control the supply chain in Iran.
All right. My final question to you, Yusuf, is this. The Iranian parliament's speaker took a jab at the Americans, saying that the Americans are claiming that they've managed to take out nearly 320% of all Iranian missile launchers. Now, the missile launchers are key in this war because that is what gives the Iranians the ability to launch the missiles and drones with which they've been hitting at various American and Israeli targets. At this moment, is there any indication from the Iranian government as to how far this war can last?
Well, as put by Mr. Ghalibaf, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, and other officials like Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, they have all echoed the same thing. They're saying that they're ready to continue this fight as long as they're exposed to the incoming strikes from the Israelis and the Americans. And they're saying that despite claims by Donald Trump, despite claims by Benjamin Netanyahu, that Iran's military has been degraded, and the missile might and the missile power and the drone power have been degraded, Iran continues to launch missiles towards Israelis and continues to target U.S. interests in the region. So they're saying that this is a war of narratives, and that on the battlefield, Iran has proven to the world and to its adversaries, the Americans and the Israelis, that it has the capability to continue this fight, at least for now, 3 weeks into this war. And the United States, the Iranian officials are saying that the United States has not been able to achieve its primary goal of regime change in Iran, let alone bring in or degrading the Iranian military power, and not to mention the Iranian nuclear power. So none of these goals have been achieved so far. And this is all due to the Iranian missile power that continues to just put pressure on the United States and Israel.
Indeed. Yusuf Jalali, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Tehran and getting us all those insights there.